Today was an incremental announcement. Initially, there was $275 million announced for supporting researchers and scientists, clinicians and doctors, of course, people who are doing research related to immunology and fighting the virus from an immunity perspective. So really just building a vaccine. And this incremental announcement was $1.1 billion, so bringing the investment up to almost $1.4 billion in the fight to find a vaccine. This will support clinicians, researchers, and scientists who are, virologists and immunologists to help them, because this is the type of research that generally takes years. But they're doing it in a matter of weeks. So we really want to support the best and brightest scientists and researchers in Canada. And very gratefully, and I know a lot of people share this sentiment regardless of your background or your viewpoint, I'm more grateful than I ever have been to be Canadian, because these investments are just, they're world leading, and we know that this is the type of science that we need to trust in order to get past this terrible virus.
And I guess to just maybe one last question, just to round it out. I mean, this is really big news. And how do you think? I mean, somebody watching, that's great. They're going to get a vaccine. We're going to do more research. But how do you think that this will affect your constituents day to day eventually?
Well, there are a lot of announcements that are going to affect our constituents day to day. With respect to the investment in research and science, this is going to get us back to normal, quote unquote normal, quicker. Whatever that normal is, we know that a vaccine is a necessary step in that direction. So the quicker that we can get that science treatments, better treatments and better vaccines, the safer that we'll all be. Really though, the announcements that will affect and are affecting currently our neighbors and constituents more broadly are some more of the announcements that have been announced this week, including the $350 million for not-for-profits and charities. This investment is going directly to organizations, service organizations that are already working in our communities, because really we're trying to find existing pathways to bring this money into the community, right? We can't build a new program overnight. What we need to do is work with established community partners to get the services and money out to the people who need it most. So these vulnerable communities are, seniors and children, racialized communities, Indigenous, LGBTQ2 communities. There's a lot of people out there who are suffering, and everybody's hurting in a different way. So the Red Cross, as well as United Way and the Community Foundations of Canada, are going to help us in be able to distribute that $350 million. Also announced yesterday was a $9 billion program to support post-secondary education students. So this is students that are going on to university or college or other forms of post-secondary education, and that includes the Canadian Emergency Student Benefit, which is $1,250 a month. The applications will start in May, and they'll be retroactive to May 1st, because most students would be studying until May 1st and looking for summer employment for those 4 months. So the CESB is a 4-month program that will go to the end of August. Associated programs include Canada Summer Jobs. So I, as the MP of Milton, I'm looking for great organizations that are doing excellent community service work that are going to be deemed essential and very necessary going forward through the summer months. There's a lot of youth and young people between the ages of 15 and 30 who are eager to be involved in the community, that want to participate and help, rebuild the economy, and certainly help stay, they want to be active in making sure that the most vulnerable people have access to the things that they really need. There's also service corps work, there's paid volunteer work. We're also doubling Canada student grants from $3,000 to $6,000, as well as increasing student loan monthly stipends. And we're providing monthly stipends for the micro grant program. So literally every program that has ever affected a student has been increased and fortified with more money, more investments, so that students will continue to get ahead. That is all in addition to the CERB, which I know that tens of thousands of Miltonians have already taken advantage of being unemployed currently, as well as our supports for small and medium-sized businesses, which include CEBA, which is the bank account, as well as some others, including wage subsidy. I know that not everybody is having the easiest time accessing these. Service Canada is totally overloaded, but I just do want to thank our public health officials, as well as our public servants, for trying to get these incredible programs up and running and helping Canadians as quickly as possible.
Last question. I don't know if you can answer this right now, but I mean, with all these announcements and these funding that the government is issuing, trying to help us through this time, can you speak to? I mean, it's no brainer that we're going into debt because of this, right? So, is there any talks in place that from a federal level of how we're going to be able to do this while going into debt at the same time?
Canada is in a very strong financial position to be able to invest in Canadians. That's what's really, really important to recognize. We had a triple star rating before this, and look, every country in the world is going to have to spend their way out of this in some way. We're going to have to invest in healthcare services in Canadians to make sure that the economy rebounds so that on the other side of this terrible crisis, Canada will continue to be one of the strongest countries in the world. On the topic of debt, this is something that I actually like discussing because it's a hot topic with a lot of really smart young people in my Milton Youth Council. They want to know what national debt is and what a deficit is. And a lot of them know just as much, if not more, than I do about this topic. But really important to recognize that when a country pays off debt, who they're paying and where those interest payments are going towards, that's an interesting topic of discussion. 75% of Canadian debt, Canadian federal and national debt, is actually owned by Canadian taxpayers in the form of bonds. So I expect there will be an increase in bond sales coming up after this. I think that Canadians will be eager to purchase bonds because as Canada's federal debt grows, the investment in Canada does too. We continue to be a more wealthy and prosperous nation with great infrastructure, great healthcare services, great education, and a bright future because we're investing in our students. So I'm not too concerned at this point about debt because honestly, relative to our neighbors and countries around the world, I think we're managing this crisis quite well. I want to be able to support everybody because I know that different and other countries came to this crisis at a different point. Certainly, we've seen some tragedies in Spain and Italy for countries that were harder hit and hit earlier on in the crisis before it was a real acknowledged as a true global pandemic. But my heart is with everybody who's in a tough position, whether that's a health position or a financial one. We're all feeling this in a different way, and feel free to contact my office through email is best right now because we're not in the office very often. I was in the office yesterday for a few hours trying to get some things done because I have a bigger computer screen than this little laptop at home. And the phone was ringing a lot, which is fine. You can leave a voicemail. We don't have call forwarding set up, but if you would send me an email, just adam.vankoeverden@parle.gc.ca, then that's the quickest way to get in touch with my staff and I right now.